Hello and welcome to another episode of In the Trenches with Gang Green. I'm your host Blair, also known as Bubbs. Today is episode 407 of the In the Trenches with Gang Green podcast. I thank you as always for joining me. It is week 7. It is Jets Steelers week in Pittsburgh. Sunday night football should be a lot of fun as the 2-4 Jets look to try and save their young season against the 4-2 Steelers. Today, we're joined by special guest Steelers beat reporter Alan Saunders. Alan, thanks so much for coming on. How's it going, man?
It's going good, man. Just a pretty busy week here in Pittsburgh. It's been a busy week for you guys up in New York. So I'm excited for this game, though, man. Sunday night football, always a big deal in Pittsburgh. I'm fired up about it.
Yeah, 100%. Perfect opening statement there. I totally agree. It's been a crazy week. Steelers, obviously, quarterback change for the Jets. You get the Devontae Adams trade. You get a really tough loss against the Bills on Monday night, but should be a wild environment there on primetime in Pittsburgh. So I guess we'll just start here, and of course, we'll break down all angles of this one, but just kind of want to start with your overall thoughts on where the Steelers are at here, 6 games in, heading into week 7, and then from an outside perspective, just some of your thoughts on where the Jets stand going into this showdown.
Yeah, I'll start with the Steelers. They're 4-2. They've played okay. They haven't beaten anyone good yet. I guess maybe the Falcons are. I don't know. Not anybody that's actually contending for a Super Bowl. Let's say that. Okay. And they haven't played anybody. I mean, the Cowboys, again, maybe are on the fringe of Super Bowl contention, but they played them without Micah Parsons, and they kind of, they got beaten around in that game. Lose on the last play of the game hurts, but I think in general the Steelers have been good but not great. That's how Mike Tomlin described it this week, and I think that's a pretty apt way to put it. They're okay. They've beaten the bad teams like they're supposed to. Generally, they played okay against some okay teams. I don't think that what the Steelers have done is going to hold up when they get into the meat of the schedule, start facing teams like Kansas City, like Baltimore. But it'll probably win them a whole bunch of regular season games, and I think it'll have them competitive with the New York Jets. I think that good but not great mindset is why they're deciding to make a change at quarterback. They haven't announced it yet, but the whole world knows that Russell Wilson is going to start, and I don't know that he's going to be better, but Justin Fields is throwing for about 150 yards a game. That's just not good enough. I think they need to try to find a way to get that passing offense going somehow. George Pickens has 6 catches over the last 2 games. If you're a George Pickens fantasy owner, you probably are aware of the pain of the Steelers passing offense. They have to find some way to get it going. You have a Hall of Fame quarterback sitting on your bench. It costs nothing to try. I'm not convinced it's going to work, but it's probably better than just continuing to do the same thing over and over again. As far as my thoughts on the New York Jets, I'm generally of the mindset that firing your coach in midseason does very little unless you think you have a coach in waiting that might actually be something and quite good. And I didn't get the impression that that's what the Jets had. But I look at the personnel and this Jets offense shouldn't be this bad. The players are good. I know the offensive line has been banged up and maybe isn't all that good in the first place, but Breece Hall's really good. I love Braylon Allen. The receivers were pretty good, and then you add Devontae Adams to it. I think Aaron Rodgers is still good enough. I don't think he's going to be a great quarterback anymore. I don't know. It looks like a team that is not adding up to the sum of its parts right now, and I understand the line of thinking. If you're looking at the same thing and you say, hey, maybe it's the coach, and maybe it was. The defense is outstanding. I think this is going to be one of those primetime games where the rest of the country grumbles about the lack of offense, because I could very easily see this game finishing like 12-9 or something like that.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. It feels like this is going to be an ugly, low scoring for the people out there that like old school smash mouth, low scoring defensive football. This is a game for you, but there aren't too many of those people still around these days. So probably another one of these kind of boring, primetime showdowns. You mentioned Fields, of course, the Russell Wilson situation. I want to start with that and get into that here a little bit. Like you mentioned, Fields starts the first 6 games. Passing yards haven't been there. Had 5 passing touchdowns, 5 rushing touchdowns. So nothing crazy impressive. Feels like the defense has kind of carried this team so far. What do you feel Russell Wilson, obviously not the same player he once was, but what do you feel he can provide? How much of a spark you feel he can provide for this Steelers offense, and what your overall expectations are for him, assuming most likely this eventually gets announced officially?
Yeah, so I mean, I think the thing is, the Steelers don't have a ton of talent at wide receiver. They got George Pickens, and Calvin Austin's kind of a speed demon guy, but he's really small. Van Jefferson, has not been great for a little while now. They don't have a whole lot of wide receiver, and I think Arthur Smith is doing some creative things to get guys open, and it's taken like some more defense reading ability than I think Justin Fields really possesses to like find which guy's open in which scenario. Like it's just not quick enough on the trigger when he's getting rid of the football. Russell Wilson has not necessarily been that guy throughout his career, but he started to become that guy last year in Denver. I think he can be. He's short, so he's always going to have a hard time throwing quick over the middle. But I think he can be a guy that gets rid of the ball faster, finds the open guy, and just does a good job of like, hey, here's where the opening throw is going to be. Make the read pre-snap. There it is. Okay, ball's out. 5 yards. Let's go. The offensive line hasn't been great. They have a ton of injuries. 5 of their top 10 offensive linemen out. So they can't pass protect forever. They ran the ball really well against the Raiders. I don't expect them to run the ball really well against the Jets. But the play action game, I think, is the other thing that Russell Wilson has always been really good at, and Justin Fields has always struggled at. The Steelers want to run the ball. If they can run the ball well, I think the play action game can be big for them, and I think Russell Wilson will be much better at that than Fields was.
Yeah, you mentioned the struggles on the offensive line. I guess we can jump here to that. Zach Frazier, of course, going down to huge injury. Broderick Jones hasn't played very well. Jets fans very familiar with him. You guys trade up, get him. We obviously go out and get Will McDonald in 2022. What is your, or 2023 rather, what is your overall, I guess, feelings on where this offensive line's at? And of course, the Frazier injury, which is a huge blow.
Yeah, I mean, they've kind of got the little Dutch boy with his finger in the dike feeling like with this offensive line, like they're keeping it together. They have not like completely fallen apart yet. They also have not faced the world's most demanding defensive fronts. Like, I mean, they played the Cowboys without Lawrence or Parsons. When they played the Broncos, Zach Allen was in the backfield more than Najee Harris was. I think there's like a real chance that the Jets defensive line just absolutely takes over this game when those units are on the field. There's some good players there. Like Isaac Seumalo is a really good left guard. I think Mason McCormick has a lot of promise as a rookie, but a 4th round rookie, man, he's going to make mistakes. I think that's the biggest thing, is that they're going to be inconsistent. And there's going to be like Najee Harris has not done well as a back in dealing with like unexpected guys being, players not being where they're supposed to be. And, he's a big downhill runner. He wants that lane clearly defined for him so he can build up that head of steam. So when he gets to the next level, he can run over defensive backs or hurdle a guy or stiff arm a guy. He's not like the world's, hippiest running back where he's just going to make people miss all over the place. Like that's not him. And so, the thing for Najee Harris is you got to block the front 7 and let him go hit the little guys. They haven't been doing that very consistently. I think that's why he had one game where he had 19 yards rushing, and then last week he has like 100 and some. And so, I'm not very confident in the Steelers' offensive line ability to deal with the Jets front, especially with Frazier out. I mean, Ryan McCollum is going to be making his first start since 2021, a former undrafted guy out of Texas A&M, was on the practice squad the last 2 years. That's not a good matchup for Williams at all. I don't know how they're going to attempt to contain him.
Yeah, definitely something to really keep an eye on. And for the Jets defense line coming off of a really difficult week where they got real no pressure and struggled against the run, an opportunity here for them. You mentioned Najee Harris. Jets defense comes into this game as one of the worst ranked rushing defenses in football. See how that battle, of course, goes out with the Steelers offensive line. But coming off of the 100-yard game, do you feel he found something there? I guess, how do you feel he can build on that here coming off of Vegas last week?
I mean, I think mostly they just blocked for him. I don't really think it's I don't think it was anything that he did that was special. I mean, I think if they make holes for him, he'll be fine. But if they don't, he's not going to overcome that. I think that's sort of the story of his career in Pittsburgh, where he was a first round draft pick and has sort of been
Yeah.
like consistently okay, but kind of disappointing compared to his draft stock. They've never had a good offensive line in front of him. And I just don't think that's going to happen now with all the injuries. They had invested a whole ton in the offensive line this offseason. It looked like it was going to be a strength of the team, but and it certainly is not now with all these injuries. If they can block it, he'll do fine, but he's not going to create room on his own. The one thing I will say is last week, Jalen Warren first came back from a knee sprain. He did not look 100%. I think they will have him at a more available level this week, and sort of some of those games where no one's blocking anybody and Najee Harris is having trouble. Jalen Warren is kind of that guy that can make something out of nothing with his speed and his elusiveness. And sometimes, the defense plays it really well and he just goes off anyway. So this could be a game where the Steelers try to lean on Jalen Warren a little bit more than they have so far this season.
I am curious. I just want to go back here to the quarterback. Of course, you're around the team every day, covering them. What is your vibe, or I guess the vibe you've gotten from Fields? I know he made a comment today that made some headlines. Just your vibe on the locker room, like Fields, now that the transition, what you've gotten from him, and even Russ, and how the locker room's reacted to this quarterback change. Just kind of curious how that's been like.
It's been really interesting because on one hand, I think Justin Fields has probably played like about the best 6-game stretch of his career, and the
Yeah.
Steelers are 4-2, and that's pretty good. On the other hand, I think Justin Fields had a real opportunity to basically retire Russell Wilson, to say like, look, I'm the guy. I'm playing so good they can't possibly take me out. Sorry, old man, you're not it. And he didn't do that, and he didn't even really come close to that.
Yeah.
And so I think for him, I think it's easy to be disappointed in the outcome. And he really put it right out there in just that way, is that I wasn't good enough. I had the opportunity to make it my job and to make there be no question. And I didn't do that. And so now I have to deal with it. They're both been really, really professional about the whole thing. I think great credit to both men and to the Steelers coaching staff for the way they've communicated how they're doing things. And maybe not communicating it to us, but they're certainly communicating it to them in a way that's kept all the players happy, at least as happy as you can be when you're losing your job. But, I think credit to them for that. But yeah, so I think, like Justin Fields is, saying things like, hey, I need to be better. And then Najee Harris says, hey, don't be so hard on yourself. You were really good. And he was really good compared to what he had been before. And I just think it's understandable that the Steelers, with someone as talented as Russell Wilson available to them, want to see what they've got. And also, the end of the Steelers schedule is just a bloodbath. They play like at Philly, at Baltimore, Kansas. At Philly, at Baltimore on a short week. Back-to-back Kansas City on a short week, at Cincinnati to end the year. Like, they got to figure out quarterback now. They can't wait until December to make some kind of change. So I think it kind of makes some sense, even if you look at it on the surface and say Justin Fields playing better than he ever has been, 4-2. Why make the change right now? I think a lot of people understand it.
Yeah, the Jets learned the hard way last year, figuring out the quarterback too late, where you had Zach rolling out there and Simeon and Boyle and that disaster. I guess just one more thing quickly on the quarterback. 2025 and beyond, do you feel they will draft somebody? I mean, they're probably not, they won't be bad enough. I mean, they could potentially make the playoffs. They're not going to have a top 10 pick, but I guess just future-wise, where do they go with the quarterback position?
I think they will draft someone, probably not in the first round, just to draft someone. Like, they have nobody under contract beyond this year at the quarterback position. Kyle Allen's a third stringer. He's a free agent too. And so I think they will draft someone just to have someone they can try to develop, but I doubt that person will be starting next year. I don't know who it's going to be. We'll see. One of these guys can take the reins and run with it. It'll probably be him. And if not, then I don't know. Maybe it'll be somebody else. Guess we'll see.
Yeah. Definitely something to look out for. I want to move now to the defensive side of the football. And obviously the Steelers defense has been very good here for the last couple seasons. TJ Watt leads the way. I mean, I guess I'll just start with TJ Watt. You watch him each week. I don't think there's really much more that needs to be said about TJ Watt, but just what is it like seeing him each week and what he brings to the table? And Tyron Smith, the guy this year that has struggled for the Jets, has not looked like his normal self. will have a very large test against him. Just TJ Watt, I mean, what does, he bring to the table, which is obviously, defensive player of the year caliber every single season.
You cannot keep him from wrecking the game no matter what you do. That's basically the scouting report on TJ Watt. The Raiders had two guys on him basically the entire game. For the first time since 2018, he did not have a quarterback hit or hurry or sack in the game. So what does he do? He forces two fumbles. That's all.
Yeah.
Just it doesn't matter what you do. He will find a way to make an impact. And I think I'm really interested to see what the Jets' plan is here in terms of dealing with him. Like you said, Moses at right tackle, TJ is going to line up over there. It won't be Tyron Smith. It'll be Moses. And so I don't think he's like a world beater in terms of pass protection. How much help do they want to give him? I know they just get Devontae Adams. You look at the wide receiver group and you're like Adams and Wilson and Lazard, and this is, that's exciting and fun and probably what Aaron Rodgers wants. And then you're like, oh, no, we need more help for our right tackle than that. Wait, get Ruckert and Conklin on here. Stat, three tight ends and two running backs. That's the only way Aaron Rodgers survives this. So I'm interested to see how the Jets approach it, because I think it is possible to minimize TJ Watt. You're not going to stop him from making an impact. It is possible to minimize him, but I think it's going to kind of go against what the Jets might want to be doing with their offense right now. And so I think that's going to be an interesting part of this game.
Yeah, it'll be looking back at that game against the Raiders, they slid a lot of tight end help over, so something that the Jets could potentially do, although the Jets this season's tight ends have not been very good at blocking, pass protection, and run blocking. So definitely something kind of a cat and mouse game there that'll be played throughout Sunday night. I also want to discuss Patrick Queen as well. Big offseason signing within the division coming over from Baltimore. What have you seen from him so far, and what does he bring to this table for this Steelers defense?
Yeah, I think a little bit of a slow start statistically for him. He had 10 tackles last game, but kind of ramping up to that level so far. But I think the big thing with Patrick Queen is his ability in coverage to take on difficult assignments as a linebacker makes the rest of their defense so much better. He's probably the guy for me that covers Breece Hall when he goes on his adventures as a far out wide receiver, whatever he's doing. And that's not an assignment that a lot of teams feel comfortable with a linebacker taking. They feel very comfortable with Patrick Queen taking any kind. In fact, he was against the Chargers. There was a Hail Mary, and like Queen had his wide receiver all the way down the end zone. Like they're just like, he covers everybody, and so it doesn't necessarily look always like it's making a big impact, but that makes a huge difference in the rest of the way this defense can play. Landon Roberts is the other starting linebacker, is just a pure old-fashioned butt-kicking downhill run stopper, and having a guy like Queen next to him makes him so much better because he doesn't have to worry about doing anything other than filling a gap. And man, Cam Hayward in front of Patrick Queen too has been so good at keeping him clean that he's been really he's never been like the world's best run stopping linebacker, but I think him over 97 has been a pretty profitable arrangement for them. I'm interested to see how the Steelers can handle Hall and Allen. I think that's a solid running back combo. Really is. I mean, again, like I said before, the personnel looks good. I don't know why the results have not been better for the Jets offense.
Yeah, 100%. Totally agree there. And then just want to shift into some of the secondary stuff here. Obviously, Minkah Fitzpatrick. You got Joey Porter Jr. as well back there. You bring in Devontae Adams, Garrett Wilson, of course, has been here now, back-to-back 100-yard weeks for him. You've got Lazard as well. Just what do you expect to see from Steelers secondary, Jets receiving core, and how much attention? Who will slide over and cover Devontae, cover Garrett Wilson? What should fans expect from that matchup as well on Sunday?
Yeah, the Steelers have done a really nice job by giving Joey Porter Jr. all the difficult assignments, and sort of like Dante Jackson is the other starting corner, came over from Carolina in a trade this offseason. And, Dante Jackson's been around a while. He's not a great player. He's, a good player, I would say, but they've really got the most out of him by, I think, minimizing the difficult matchups that he has to face. Last year in Carolina, he was like their top corner and was getting every team's best receiver. And now they've kind of given all of those to Porter, and he's kind of gotten the number 2 guys. I'm not sure there is a number 2 guy on the Jets right now. I think you have to give both Adams and Wilson a lot of attention. I assume the Steelers are not going to try to blitz Aaron Rodgers very much. They're probably going to play a ton of zone. I think there will be, to my eye, I think the areas to attack for the Jets will be underneath. The Steelers slot corners, Beanie Bishop. He's an undrafted rookie out of West Virginia. He's had a very up and down year. He can absolutely be taken advantage of. When they go in nickel or dime, they have a rookie coverage linebacker that comes in for Roberts, Peyton Wilson out of NC State. A guy I really like as a prospect, but certainly someone that a veteran quarterback can pick apart. So for me, Alan Lazard is actually the matchup that I think will benefit the Jets the most. I don't really think the Steelers have anyone that they are going to feel good about covering him. I think it's going to have to be a team effort, but I think he's someone that can really go off in this game.
Now that we've covered kind of both sides of the football here, I just want to get some of your closing thoughts. What are some under the radar guys or guys that we haven't talked about already that to look out for on Sunday night? And then two, just some X factors and maybe any other matchups you're looking for in this one.
Yeah, Pat Freiermuth, I think when we saw him with Russell Wilson in the spring in like OTAs and minicamp, I thought he looked poised to have a monster breakout type season. And then, it never really came to fruition with Fields in there. You look at some of the tape, he's open all the time. It was just, I don't know, for whatever reason, him and Fields didn't link up the way I think people hoped. He's got 22 catches, something, not very many on the season. I think he's a guy that could really benefit from the change at quarterback and really have a big day. I also am, of the Jets, I think the Jets defense is very good. And I think, they have good talent all over, but I think probably the one area you could pick apart in that Jets defense is a little bit the center and pass coverage is not necessarily the best. So I think a guy like Freiermuth is really athletic. You can flex him out. You can send him up the seam. I think I think the Steelers would love to get George Pickens going, but I think you have to have too much respect for Sauce Gardner to even really try that very much. So for me, I think Freiermuth has to be a big part of the Steelers passing offense. The other thing I thought they did really well with Russell Wilson early that we haven't seen as much of is the screen game. The Jets are a really, really high motor defensive line at times. They love to get after the quarterback. I think the screen game, especially with that, banged up Steelers offensive line, I just think, this isn't a frontal assault. This has to be some sneak attack kind of stuff for the Steelers. And so I think the screen game could be big for them as well. Try to slow down those edge rushers a lot. Will McDonald's a really good player. I know you talked about the Broderick Jones trade and trade up. I know Will McDonald is not the player that the Jets thought they wanted, but I think he's a really, really good one.
Will McDonald's had a very solid season. 7 sacks on the year. Is kind of taken over that number 1 edge rusher role with Jermaine Johnson hurt. Hassan Reddick still not showing up wherever he is right now. So that's been a tough situation, but probably will never show up. But anyway, just to close things out here, really appreciate you coming on the podcast. Lots of good insight. Where can everybody find you, all your stuff, social media and all that good stuff?
Yeah, at @Saunders_PGH on X, Instagram, and TikTok. PGH Steelers Now is my site's account, SteelersNow.com. That's where all my written stuff is. You can find my podcast, Steelers Morning Rush and Steelers Afternoon Drive, on the Steelers Now YouTube page or wherever you find podcasts.
Yeah, definitely go check them out. This was a lot of fun. Should be a good one on Sunday night. Hopefully, maybe a little bit more scoring than we maybe expect here, but we'll see. It should be a good, old-fashioned AFC showdown on the road for the Jets in a tough environment there in Pittsburgh. I still like to call it Heinz Field, although it's Acrisure Stadium now. But I guess one more question: how many people do they call it Acrisure? There's still a lot of people are still.
I think there's still a lot of Heinz holdouts, but it's growing and like nobody likes it. It's just sort of begrudging acceptance, as I would say, where a lot of people are.
They're just realizing it's not going to change back, so might as well just adjust at this point. But it should be a fun one. So we'll have a lot more content coming your way, and appreciate you all tuning in on YouTube and all the different audio podcast platforms. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you later.